Exactly 80 years since an atomic bomb was used in war for the first time, thousands bowed their heads in prayer in Hiroshima as the city's mayor, Matsui, warned world leaders about the nuclear warheads that still exist today. The western Japanese city of Hiroshima was leveled on August 6, 1945, when the United States dropped a uranium bomb nicknamed Little Boy, killing about 78,000 people instantly. Little Boy unleashed a surge of heat reaching 4,000 degrees Celsius and radiation that killed tens of thousands more by the end of the year. It was followed by a plutonium bomb on Nagasaki 3 days later and Japan's surrender on August 15. Representatives from a record 120 countries and territories, including nuclear superpower the US and Israel, which neither confirms nor denies having nuclear weaponry, attended the annual ceremony at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park for the milestone year.
As Prime Minister, I would like to offer my sincerest condolences to the souls of those who fell victim to the atomic bomb. And I would also like to offer my heartfelt sympathy to the survivors who are still suffering from the after effects of the atomic bombing. We must not repeat the tragedy that was brought upon Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is our country's responsibility, as the only nation that have suffered atomic bombings, to uphold the three non-nuclear principles and lead the global initiative for a world without nuclear weapons. I pledge to work with all my strength for a world without nuclear wars and weapons, as well as eternal peace.
International society should deeply acknowledge the historical meaning of that and never let people experience what the Hibakushas, atomic bombing victims, went through. We need to set our minds and take action to make this year, which marks the 80th year since the atomic bombings, a year to bring peace with no wars to the world where everyone can live with peace of mind.
Russia state media has described the meeting between U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday as constructive and useful. Well, the meeting took place amid the backdrop of a looming sanctions deadline threatened by U.S. President Donald Trump if Russia does not agree to a peace deal with Ukraine. State media outlet RIA Novosti reports that Witkoff and Putin discussed Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. After the meeting that lasted about 3 hours, the Kremlin said it will release more information on what was discussed after Witkoff reports back to U.S. President Donald Trump the president has grown increasingly impatient with Russia's resistance to his peace efforts. Since the last meeting between Witkoff and Putin in April, Russia has ramped up its assault on Ukraine, attacking cities with an onslaught of missiles and drones. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Glad to have you join us, Marek. Has the world learned lessons at all from that incident in 1945 when America dropped that bomb called Little Boy that killed 78,000 people instantly and 200,000, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 200,000 on the whole, some from other effects of the nuclear bomb?
The answer is yes and no. Yes, it has learned that nuclear bombs do indeed work and are very powerful. Yes, that they cause a great deal of damage. But in the sense of never happening again, the answer is a firm no. The Americans, some years back, it is true, released a stamp saying atom bombs shorten wars, which indeed they did, because the alternative was an invasion of Japan. And in this sense, it did shorten the war. Equally, the Russians still abide by the doctrine, what Stalin stated, that the nuclear bomb is simply a bigger bomb, much more powerful, but in the end, a bomb. And this is, of course, what the Americans say when they mean a nuke gives you a bigger bang for your buck. So therefore, unquestionably, nuclear bombs are usable again. there are countries prepared to use them, such as America and Russia, and who see advantages in so using them. And that therefore, moreover, it happened in World War II that there was a talk that the bomber would always get through, and the sight of devastated cities terrified people in the 30s. Nonetheless, the war occurred. Likewise here, despite this today's ceremony, the prediction I made some years back that World War III would occur, it's in fact a nexus which is very hard to avoid, stands. And so therefore the answer is, as I stated, yes, they've seen the effects, is still possible.
Well, during that occasion, the city's mayor Matsui warned against stockpiles of nuclear warheads still in existence. What impact, if any, do you think that this warning from Matsui will have on the paradigms of those who are still stockpiling warheads? The U.S.,
I'm afraid
Russia?
none. I'm afraid none. There's the people who are stockpiling warheads are military people, politicians who seek power, seek conquest, and therefore these, if you like, platitudes coming from the Japanese will simply be ignored. At the end of the day, the nukes give you prestige, possibility of conquest and power, and as long as that remains, they will be stockpiled and stockpiled in possibly greater numbers and, or moreover, modernized and improved. So again, unfortunately, today's ceremony will have no effect.
The superpowers seem to have their way. How can the entire world, even checkmate countries that still have these warheads, is there anywhere at all for the world to checkmate them, Marek?
There is no easy way in regards to the potential war looming between the West and Russia, in particular over the Suwalki corridor. I have made suggestions previously about a compromise or the necessity of a buffer state being formed in North Poland, which I have put forward here and there to some people, which I could do. But there is no way of stopping the stockpiling of weapons. No way the rest of the world can do anything except join in the ceremonies at Nagasaki or Hiroshima and then try to persuade people to voluntarily give up the nuclear weapons. But please note, this has never worked. The campaign for nuclear disarmament in Great Britain was possibly the most advanced the world has seen, and it got absolutely nowhere.
Let's talk more about the fact that some groups are doing something. In 2024, that was last year, Nihon Hindankyo, a Japanese group of atomic bomb survivors, won the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to rid the world of these deadly bombs or nukes. How far do you think their efforts have gone?
Again, like today's ceremony, yes, they are present. Yes, they're noted by the media. Yes, they win prizes. But in terms of effectively reducing the possibility of a nuclear war, let alone eliminating nuclear weapons, none. Moreover, there is a sting in the tail about nuclear weapons. Even if they were to be got rid of, let's say, tomorrow, by waving a magic wand, they can easily be rebuilt. And one reason why Germany won its victories initially in World War II is that it started from a state of disarmament and so had a fully modern armed forces, whereas Great Britain and France were still, as Weygand put it, going to war with the World War I army. And there was already World War II. So even if disarmament was to occur, it's a question of manufacturing lead time before they could come back, much improved, no doubt. And please note that although there are people who have been speaking out about Hiroshima, hence the famous Hiroshima Mon Amour by the French, it has got nowhere. The only people remotely contemplated, if you like, disarming, as I said, were the British in the sense of some sectors of the public. Some nations have gone on record saying they do not want nuclear weapons and don't have them. But I'm afraid for those who have nuclear weapons, these nations simply come across as weak. And so therefore, there is nothing that can be done. We have nuclear weapons. Our problem is how to manage the world so they don't go off, so that they are not used. But the notion of being able to disarm is, in fact, entirely impossible.
Do you think that's why the mayor Matsui is saying that the non-nuclear treaty, which America, Russia, and even Japan has refused to assent to, is on the brink of dysfunctionality?
Yes. There's no question that the Russians and the Americans, for different reasons, but ultimately are prepared to leave all these treaties. There is a war going on. Russia feels that America has withdrawn from peace and is threatening it. America feels the same about Russia. After all, Russia attacked Ukraine. And therefore, in war, at the end, there are no real limits. And what will happen is that sooner or later, these treaties will cease to have much effect.
All right, let's turn our attention to what's been going on in Ukraine, and of course the meeting between Witkoff and Putin. Friday is around the corner. That's when the day Trump gave for if Russia doesn't abide by trying to get peace, then sanctions. Will Trump carry out his threat for sanctions against Russia? If he does, how will that impact world trade, especially when countries like China still buy Russian oil?
Yeah, it would appear that his next move, because he must make a move, otherwise he has lost all credibility. On Friday, he has to make a move, will be probably against so-called India, that is the secondary sanctions. And I think he won't go any further, take real sanctions against Russia immediately, because that would perhaps escalate the situation. Now, I have some good news. According to my analysis, Russia will not be using nuclear weapons, either Ukraine or the Baltic states. They'll be first used in Poland. And we are some way away from that. And moreover, Russia has not made significant progress, but has made some progress on the battlefield. So there is an opportunity still to halt this war. And the fact that Trump isn't, I don't think, going to use full whack on sanctions is actually correct. But he will do something which is correct. And so there is a possibility of at least opening negotiations again. The interesting comment that the Russians made was that the talks were constructive. The implication there is they've made some sort of offer, and this is what's going back to the president of the USA, that is to say. So on the whole, from this point of view, a good day.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that constructive. After 3 hours of talk between Witkoff and Putin, Kremlin says talk, constructive, and useful. What's your understanding of that statement, really?
That the Russians have made some sort of offer. That's why he has to go back to the president. They've replied perhaps positively to something. Might be direct negotiations with Ukraine. Myself, I don't think these talks will actually halt the war as things stand, nor do I think that Trump's move on Friday will halt the war. But insofar as the two sides are talking, insofar as they're still prepared to have some sort of constructive talks, this is good news. And so we must now wait to see what Donald Trump learns from his envoy, and therefore what his response will be. It might be sufficiently positive that he does nothing on Friday, but I do suspect he'll move on India because it's a soft target, and sanctions on India will, in any case, help his economy because his plan is, of course, to try and restore manufacturing in the USA. So I do expect a move on India, but quite possibly nothing more.
Well, the first talk between America and Russia held in April, that's about 3 or 4 months ago. Since then, instead of slowing down, Russia's attack has ramped up. This time round, do you see a turnaround in Russia's policy?
No, I don't see a turnaround in the sense that Russia still wants to win. But if they're making constructive suggestions, perhaps there is a place at which some sort of agreement could be made. That's the point. That Russia's ramped up its attacks, yes. Moreover, it's still going for Pokrovsk. That is still an ongoing onslaught. So therefore, from this point of view, you are quite right. But the key point is they are talking, and we have yet to see what President Donald Trump makes of this. Moreover, as I said, there is no immediate possibility of escalation because Russia will not be nuking Ukraine or the Baltic states. Poland will be the first in line for that. And therefore, despite the fact that Russia has ramped up, as you put it, its onslaught, it does not mean that the war cannot be halted at present.
All right. International affairs analyst Dr. Marek Laskiewicz will leave it there and see what Giswa will hold on and watch what happens from Trump's end after Witkoff brings his report on Friday, the date he is giving for the sanctions against Russia. Thank you so much.